The son of immigrants, Francis made his first trip as Pope to an Italian island, the first port of call for migrants crossing the Mediterranean.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at lesser-known facts about Pope Francis, the Catholic Church's 266th Pope.
I cannot greet people from inside a sardine can, even if it is made of glass, Pope Francis declared.
The first Jesuit Pope.
It was an extraordinary moment for all of us when a member of the religious order that we belong to, that Belen works for, is elected to the Holy See. And it was very significant for us. Everything that's involved with being a Jesuit, the Ignatian spirituality, the devotion to the church and commitment to the church for over 500 years.
Pope Francis was a pope of many firsts. Not only was he the first pope to take the name of Francis, he was also the first pope since Pope Lando, whose papacy ended in 914, to select a name that had never been used by a predecessor. But the firsts don't stop there. Pope Francis was also the first Jesuit pope.
He wanted to show people a church that welcomes them in, right? That invites them into that experience of getting to know who Jesus is and inviting a big group of people, like people that maybe thought they couldn't be part of the church or were worried about being part of the church.
So Jesus' teaching, it's forgiveness, compassion, and reaching across and speaking to people who aren't like you.
He became a Jesuit in 1960, but would not be officially ordained until 1969, having taken time in between to teach literature and psychology and to study theology. With a work ethic like that, it's no wonder he became Pope.
And to have our Holy Father, a member of that religious order, and he was always very much tied to the religious order. He was always very close to the Jesuits and maintained that closeness to them, and always encouraging us to remain faithful to the church and always remain very faithful to serving the whole church, especially the poorest among us and those that are most in need.
His academic background.
Mai come in questo tempo si avverte il bisogno di un rilancio della ricerca scientifica per affrontare le sfide della società contemporanea.
Becoming a pope is by no means an easy path to pursue. Aside from the needed priesthood experience, a prerequisite doctoral degree in theology is also commonly expected. But that's not the only diploma Francis had earned. He also held certifications in philosophy and, more surprisingly, chemistry. Early in his life, he attended secondary school in Argentina and received a certificate as a chemical technician. While this was not ultimately the life path Pope Francis pursued, it shows his appreciation and knowledge of the sciences as well as the broad scope of his intelligence.
La scienza è una grande risorsa per costruire la pace. Vi chiedo di accompagnare la formazione delle nuove generazioni insegnando loro a non aver paura della fatica della ricerca.
The first pope from the Americas.
A night of excitement and a night of firsts. 1.2 billion Catholics rejoice as the 266th Pope is chosen. And what a surprising choice it really was. Jorge Mario Bergoglio is his name. He's the former Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He's the first pontiff from the Americas, first Jesuit Pope, first non-European in almost 1,300 years.
Born on December 17, 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Francis was the first pope to have been born in the Americas. And while his papacy officially began in March of 2013, he nearly earned the unique distinction back in 2005, when he received the second most votes in that year's papal election.
There's so much new about this. It's a Latin American for the first time. It's a Jesuit for the first time. He's taken the name of Saint Francis for the first time, which is clearly a signal that he wants to show a different face of the church, face of the poor.
As if being the first pope from the Americas wasn't already impressive enough, he was also the first pope born outside of Europe in more than 1,000 years. The last pope to have been born outside of Europe was Pope Gregory III, who was born in Syria and whose papacy lasted from 731 to 741.
When you look at that piazza and you look around the world at the celebrations going around the world, you have to realize it's a moment of an adoption. 1 billion Catholics have just been adopted by a new spiritual father.
He worked as a bouncer.
So what Ivy League school are you hiding at, Doug?
Doug did not follow in the family vocation. He's a bounce.
Like a basketball?
As odd as it may seem, as a young man growing up in Buenos Aires, Pope Francis, then known as Jorge Mario Bergoglio, took a job as a nightclub bouncer. While it remains unclear whether or not he ever had to rough up an intoxicated club patron, we're pretty sure that if he did, he would have been quick to help them up before pointing them in the direction of the nearest hospital. The image of Pope Francis rocking a tight black t-shirt and turning away drunken teenagers lives rent-free in our minds.
It says here that you have brown eyes? Come on. You actually have blue eyes in real life.
A love of tango.
We're doing the tango because it's the Pope's birthday and he's Argentinian and he danced the tango when he was young. The whole thing started in September as a sort of a joke, but it built up a following on Facebook. And from 5, 10, 15 people, there are now 10,000 followers.
As a native Argentinian, Francis had a passion for his home country's most popular dance, the tango. As a young man, the future pope would participate in social dances and was known by his friends to be quite talented to boot. He has expressed that the dance, quote, comes from deep within himself, clearly signifying that the tango has deep cultural and personal significance to him. His interest in tango was highlighted during his 78th birthday celebration, when a flash mob of 3,000 dancers was hired to perform in his honor.
I really wanted to give him this present without expecting anything in return. We wanted to spread the message that tango is like a hug, because people think of sensuality and passion when they think of tango. But it's not just that, it's an embrace.
Progressive on a number of issues.
He is committed to what is known as the signs of the times. And Francis, with his papal priorities, the climate, migration, has really sort of looked at the world as it is, right? The grief of the world, the hope of the world, the joys of the world, and the anxieties of the world, and thought, how can the church bring attention to this?
Unlike many of his predecessors, Pope Francis had been open to discussions involving abuse in the Catholic Church and the rights of those in the LGBTQIA+ community. In 2013, he famously remarked, quote, "If someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge him?"
The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual-type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the Church. But to bless each person, why not?
By instituting the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors in 2014, Francis cracked down on those who use their positions of power within the Church to take advantage of minors. If we're comparing him to those who came before, the late Pope was without a doubt one of the most progressive in the history of the Holy See.
Pope Francis represented something that we had never had. He said, we have to support migrants. We have to help migrants, and migration is an issue we have to deal with.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. His humility.
In his first seconds as leader of the Catholic Church, Jorge Bergoglio asked the crowd to pray for him, showing the world what kind of pope he wanted to be. A pastor close to the people, his humility evident in small gestures. Returning to his hotel to pay his bill after the conclave, carrying his own bag, and always reaching out to those the world often passes by.
By now, Francis's humility is the stuff of legend. He'd set a positive example within the church community since his days as Archbishop of Buenos Aires, when he chose to live in a small apartment, cooking his own meals and riding the bus to work. Francis would do the same as Pope, electing to take up residence in a Vatican guest house as opposed to the Apostolic Palace, the pontiff's traditional residence.
He felt that it was more important to shine a light on the people who hadn't had so much light shone on them before.
He was also known to dress modestly, foregoing his right to wear the classic Pope hat in favor of the more humble zucchetto. With that in mind, it's no surprise that Pope Francis is sometimes referred to as the People's Pope, a moniker that's likely to define his legacy.
Pope Francis is known as one of the most humble papal figures in the Catholic Church's history. And as we saw during his trip to the States, he didn't want to be seen as just an untouchable icon waving from the Vatican balcony. He was dubbed the People's Pope because he liked to get up close and personal.